All right, so Tyler, you have it, Jordan. Me. Okay.
Great start, as always.
We need to really take host control away from Tyler. I don't think people like Tyler
And
being
welcome in, Foolz, to episode number 32.
our Jim Brown episode, we'll call it. Legendary
Brown?
number 32.
I don't know Jim Brown. I know it's my number, so that's what we really should be celebrating here.
No. Jim Brown averaged over 100 yards
What?
per game.
The kid,
as a running
32,
back.
back in the day?
Jim Brown. But also,
That was my
Tyler,
I'm with you, Jordan.
You know, also Tyler.
32 is my football number.
God.
I did the whole segue and the full circle picture. But anyway, thanks for joining us into episode 32. We've got a great episode today. And we were able to finally get into week one football. And it is just so reminiscent of this time. And it's such a great... This is the season, boys. This is the season. Week one is over. We're going into week two. So today we're going to go over some injuries and news that's happening around the league. We're bringing back the weekly trifecta. Oh, wait, this is where I can get better at this.
There you go. You do need to get better at that.
Yeah, I do. So then we're going to be diving into our week two breakdown where we're going to go over those matchups happening this week and kind of give you our play on who we think you should play, flex, and probably be a bench warmer. But anyway, starting off news, Jordan, take us away.
So we got a little bit of news here before Mike gets into injuries. One headline is everyone's wondering if the Ravens are turning the page on Andrews, and likely is really the number one tight end there. Is Andrews, forget about him being potential number one in the league. He's not even potentially number one on his own team. Next, I think another offseason question that got answered here would be that Green Bay may have found their number one in Jaden Reed. After that, we got Dak. He gets his 4-year, $240 million, $231 guaranteed, and a 4-year contract. A lot of these other guys are getting 5 years in that time. And then Jamar Chase is playing without a contract extension. He has 2 years left on it, so he's not playing. He's still playing under his original contract. He's just not getting an extension or a pay raise.
Yeah, the thing that's really funny to me, the Cowboys continue to impress me. Every single year they pull these stunts, and in this case it's just the same thing this season with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. Why are they holding out on these guys? Why are they waiting? They sign them anyway.
Yep.
It's just it gets me every single season that this happens, and it doesn't make sense to me. But
$60 million a year. Is he number one now?
Yeah. He's why by a long shot. Yeah.
By
so
like $5
I think
million
the next
a year, right?
the next no, not 5. I think it was I think it's 2.5. Because I think you were getting I think you had didn't you have Love at 57.5?
Yeah, Love had 57.5.
He was 57.5. Yeah, and he was tied with I think he was tied with Herbert and Burrow, maybe.
They all hit 55.
They were all over
Jackson,
55.
right.
And Watson, I think, all hit 50.
Yeah,
right.
So I mean, you're talking about he reset the market by actually going into that 60. He crossed that 60 threshold, which is just insane. I know, Tyler, you really hate the salary cap, and I mean, again, I'm with you. This is taking up almost 25% of your cap on one player. He maybe he is, maybe he isn't the most important player on your team. But guess what? Quarterback's nothing without an offensive line.
And on another bit of news on top of the Green Bay is are we what's going on with the Texans wide receivers? It kind of looks like Stephon Diggs is still going to get red zone targets to keep him relevant, but Nico's number one in terms of targets. But we'll get into that later. Mike,
we will
you
get
want to
into
go
that
over
later.
Injuries?
Yeah. Let's go into the unfortunate news here. With football, it comes to the injuries, and it does really devastate some of your fantasy teams. But we're here to try and keep it updated, keep you guys relevant. So keep us in mind here. But unfortunately, we'll start off with some of the running backs. Ken Walker, right? Ken Walker is he hurt his oblique, and he missed practice today. So you got to monitor him on his upcoming week. But if not, you may want to start looking at Zach Charbonnet. Puka Nacua, he's on IR. And unfortunately, there was a news update that came out today. He may go over the 4 weeks just for IR. It might not be placed on IR just for the 4-week minimum. So could be a while. See without Puka Nacua. Jake Ferguson at tight end, MCL sprain. He's week to week, but at the same time, they haven't ruled him out this week. I don't know if I feel confident playing him, even if he is active, but he may still play. T. Higgins out with a hamstring. He's likely out this week again. He missed week 1, so we'll see where that happens. Jordan Love with his MCL. There was reports out that he may be 3 to 6 weeks out, but there's also no guarantee he does not play this week. I think that's more of a they don't want to trust Malik Willis type of thing, to be honest with you.
This one's tough too, because the Jordan Love has been proving this past season, this current season, that he is the guy in Green Bay. So this one really hurts. The good news about this, in my opinion, we can talk about it during the matchups, is this raises Josh Jacobs' value significantly, in my opinion.
Yes.
Even though he is also going through some questionable pain or strain on, I believe it was his back, I still think this. No wonder his back is sore. He's been carrying teams on behind it.
Yeah, we'll get into this later in week 2 matches, but I actually think the opposite. We'll get into why though.
Okay,
I think this hurts.
I could see a path why, but yeah, we'll get into that when we get to the game. So
now
David
I'm
Njoku
curious.
with right. Nice teaser, Jordan. Nice
Thanks.
job. So David Njoku with an ankle sprain. He's going to be out this week. I don't know if it's official, but I'm calling it now. So Jordan Addison, another ankle sprain. I do believe he's still practicing. I don't trust him. Not on that offense. I think with an ankle sprain, Jordan Addison is an elite athlete, but he can't be as shifty, and I just don't know if I'm going to end up trusting him there. Here's one that's devastating. The Miami Dolphins, they don't have just one. They have 2 pretty much starting running backs, and both of them are out. They are basically, or they're not out officially, but Mostert is out officially, and Achane is a game-time decision. Mostert with a chest injury, Achane with an ankle. We'll have to monitor this at game time. Rome Odunze, also out with a knee. They were toying with IR with him, so we'll see what happens. This one is brutal. Your number 1 pick, Christian McCaffrey, came out and Achilles tendonitis. Jordan Mason has been coming off the waiver wires everywhere because of this news, and this may be a couple-week thing.
I told you guys at the beginning of the season, nobody repeats number 1 RB. I told you.
Yeah, and this is exactly one of the paths how it happens. I mean, you're totally right. All right, to finish these off, Isaiah Likely, the magician who basically did amazing things week 1, did end up having a shoulder injury at the end of the game, did come back in, has been nursing it all week. We'll see if he actually keeps playing, but it looks like he's going to play. And last but not least, Audric Estime. This one is not somebody you're going to be playing. He's on Denver. He's a running back. He's a rookie. But what it does do, there was a lot of hype around Audric Estime in camp, and with him out on IR now, it's just going to clear more room for Javonte Williams.
Actually, I think this opens the door for Jaylene McLaughlin. I don't think Javonte Williams looked very good this past week, and McLaughlin looked even better, in my opinion, being able to be that pass catcher. You know, looking at Javonte Williams, he had 8 attempts for 23 yards and
he was
2
not
targets.
Efficient.
With one reception and no yards. So he was not having a good game. This raises Jaylene McLaughlin because he outperformed Javonte Williams this past week.
Not only
I agree. I think it raises both of them.
Yeah.
First of all. But I think Javonte Williams is still their starter, and I think McLaughlin is he's their pass catching dynamic threat back. But I think both are going to get more work, and we'll see, but I do believe it's going to more affect Javonte Williams.
In terms of just Denver's running backs, it's going to help both. Especially if you look at Sean Payton's history as a coach, he likes to have 2 serviceable running backs in his backfield. He's not somebody who goes out and finds his Bijan Robinson, his Breece Hall, like his number 1 guy. He likes that. Like he likes to have him if he can draft him in Alvin Kamara. But how many years did he run Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara? So
Oh yeah.
I think Jaleel McLaughlin, he's like the perfect candidate to pick up now before he booms. If you don't need
Yeah.
a waiver wire person within the next like week or two because somebody got injured.
Because what I feel like is going to happen is that they're both going to split the snap counts, and McLaughlin is going to show he's the better back, and he's going to take over come week 3, 4, 5. But anyway,
He
so
could
that
sneak into
is
flex
our
territory, yeah.
right. So that is our news and injuries going into week 2. Now the return of the weekly trifecta,
Can't
where
wait.
well the wait is over. So, for those of you who don't know, our weekly trifecta is where we go over our surprise pick, our consistent pick, and new this season, the Fool of the Week. That is surprise, consistent, and Fool of the Week, and we are excited to go over this with you. Starting off with my surprise pick. It's interesting because we were mid-recording, and I actually changed mine.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't think that's
my
who you had there.
No, it wasn't originally. My surprise of the week is the man who sees ghosts, none other than Sam Darnold. And I'm not saying he is a start from a fantasy perspective, but this guy blew my socks off at how well he was playing against the Giants. So grain of salt there. Next week, they're going up against a much harder team. So whether that happens, which is the 49ers, so it's probably not going to happen again. But one interception, got to give that. But I think the first half, he had a 12 for 12 attempts and 12 completions.
He had a solid start. You're right. I mean, I actually really like this for your surprise because he really did just look the part, and he looked like he belonged actually at center in an NFL team. Which,
right?
Who would have thought? Like he actually made me regret not picking Justin Jefferson in a number of leagues because he was the reason I didn't pick him, and he kind of put me to shame.
So it's also interesting. I mean, Giants D-line did not perform up to what they should, but preseason they were expected to be performing at a top 10 level. Between Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, and Kayvon Thibodeau, they got like 0 pressures, and Sam Darnold made the most of it. I mean, on the opposite side, you had Daniel Jones, who his offensive line didn't do terrible. It was mid-range, mid-average for the league, and he didn't make the most of the time he had in the pocket. But Sam Darnold cooked.
Hey! Let's not really shit on Daniel Jones here. Pardon my French, but I mean, he ended up just throwing, I think, 2, 3 touchdown passes. They just all happen to be the other team.
I've heard that stat thrown at me like 17 times.
It's actually, I'm sorry, but it is an unreal stat. Like, let's think about this, right? It is the most ridiculous stat that since he signed his $160 million contract for 4 years, he's thrown more touchdown passes to the other teams than the Giants
pick sixes,
players.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Like, I actually didn't believe it. But you know what? Moving on to something else I didn't believe.
We're not making a change at QB.
No, it doesn't seem like you will. But you know what? I am going to move on to something else I didn't believe. We're talking about a first-round pick who, honestly, a lot of people talked down on. People were done. And he finally emerged. And I'm talking about none other than Detroit Lions' Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams had a great game. And he actually looked like he was really a part of the offense. They manufactured ways to get the ball in his hands, and they targeted him not once, not twice like usual. They targeted him 9 times. 121 yards, a touchdown. I mean, he looked great.
Yeah.
He looked exactly like the person they wanted.
Yeah.
Not only that, I think this puts them, this shows that they're finally like a 2 receiver team. Like, if Amon-Ra's having a bad day, okay, we got Jameson. If Jameson's having a bad day, we got Amon-Ra. Like,
yeah,
I really think that they have
above all, you
the
still
weapons.
have Sam Laporta.
Yeah, and what's exciting is they have. Are they reaching a point with Jameson Williams now? Now that he's booming and he's fantasy relevant, you have Montgomery, Gibbs, Laporta, Goff, Amon-Ra, and Jameson Williams. Are we at a point that like you can expect a solid floor from all these guys because it's a great offense? Or are we at a point where there's too many mouths to feed and someone's going to be a bust of that
I
group?
would like to get to this later when we go over the game, if we can.
We can.
Stay tuned.
Thank you. Stay tuned.
On to my surprise. It is Joe Mixon. He's second overall in running backs. I expected him to be solid, but I don't think anybody expected him to perform this way right out of the gates, which is awesome for him. And we're going to come back to him when we talk about Josh Jacobs. But he put up great points. If you drafted him, 95% of people that got him did not draft him as their RB1. But now we're looking at the potential. He's going to be top 12, which is awesome. I think Mike called it on that one. And if, he's someone that if you have him, I would not sell high. I'm holding on.
I agree. Yeah. And I've always been a Joe Mixon liker, so I gotta say I'm not calling it, but
healthy,
I've just always been.
Plays consistent.
He's done very well
on a
for
great
me
team
in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yes.
Yep. Definitely for me, I'm starting to change that perspective because I've always been a Joe Mixon not fan. Or not a fan of Joe Mixon.
Not a fan, but I haven't been a big fan. I haven't been like a wow. Right. Like, look at this.
I think everyone's expecting him to be on the decline every year for some reason, Yeah. And like he just isn't.
For like the past 6 seasons too, and he's only 28 every year. They're like, "Yep, this is the last season." Yeah. But anyway, so moving on to consistent of the week, and it's none other than Tyreek Hill. I mean, this guy is going to consistently put up points for you, and he proved it again this week.
Even after getting arrested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. I think Tyreek Hill is just a phenomenal talent, and he's honestly changed the game. You know what I mean? Like he became that young small speedster, and he changed the game to where everybody's just trying to get these little fast shifty wide receivers.
Yep. I know. And having that level of speed is so exciting, and unfortunately the only other player to clock 24 miles per hour happens to be a Giant. But he has no quarterback to get it to him.
Yeah, I know. Doesn't it suck? Wait, who is it? Then we'll move on.
You want to guess?
I mean, I don't think it's Neighbors.
It's not.
So I'm going to go.
Oh.
Is it Hyatt?
Wandale?
It's Jalen Hyatt. Has been clocked at
Hyatt.
24 miles per hour. I believe
that's disgusting.
Him and Tyreek are the only two.
That's kind of crazy. Yeah, too bad those Giants don't have a quarterback.
Man.
But moving on to my consistent of the week, it's in my opinion none other than you don't get much more solid and much more consistent at the running back position. There's only like 3 guys who I'd say are this consistent over the past like 5 years, and the guy I'm choosing is Alvin Kamara. I think he's just been electric every single year. His efficiencies as far as a rusher have gone down year over year, but it doesn't matter because you really have him in the back of the back room as that pass catcher, and he's always good for like 6-7 catches every game. So in PPR formats, he almost just can't do any better, and he's even pushing almost 30 and still doing it.
This is a guy also that I think a big part of why he is still relevant is look at the game plan that the Saints put together. Both tight ends scored, who I don't think either one was drafted as a top 12 tight end preseason. On top of that, Alvin Kamara scored. Chris Olave put up 2.1 fantasy points against a Panthers defense, which is trash. I expect this to continue. I expect Alvin Kamara to cook, which if you have him, Jamal Williams is going to serve as a great handcuff this season in case he gets hurt. Because I really think, yes, Alvin Kamara is very talented, but I think it has a lot to do with their new offensive coordinator, and the game plan is clearly like a short pass run game that they're going to run this season. And next, for my consistent, I have Mike Evans, who let's move on because Mike Evans is just doing Mike Evans things, and he's on way to get another 1,000-yard season.
Yeah, honestly, you're right. You don't have to say anything else. You literally just say Mike Evans, mic drop. All right, move on, Ty.
It is kind of funny you say that, though, because look at the past. Look at all of our consistence of the week, and then you compare their age to where they are in the league. These young guys ain't doing it. It's the
No.
older guys, to the Joe Mixon, the Reeks, the Kamaras, Evans.
Are all of them over the age of 28? I think Kamara is the youngest out of that group.
I think he is too, and no, I think they're all.
Yep.
They're 28.
No, Mike Evans
20,
is
and you look-
31, I think. Devontae is 31.
Yes.
Yeah, Mike Evans is 31 or 32. Alvin Kamara I just looked up is 29, and Tyreek I think is 32.
31. But
Yeah, so wow, the young buck is 29.
Yep. But moving on to Fool of the Week, and I have none other than Joe Burrows. He is for me, biggest fantasy disappointment of the week. He did absolutely nothing and you drafted him high. You spent in those Superflex leagues first round capital on him. And for those, standard leagues, you're getting him at pick number 4, 4 or 5, round 4 or 5. So just, what are you doing, dude? Put your hair back to its normal color.
Yeah. Eminem is not making him the real Slim Shady, but I will say I don't want to hate on Burrow now, mostly because I have him in the Superflex league. But there was a lot of down QBs this week. There was not a lot of QBs that really did a whole lot. So I'm gonna hold it back. He was missing one of his top 2 receivers. Jamar Chase was missing all of preseason, so you could call it he had 75% of him. I don't know. I don't like how he did, but I'm not saying sit him. He's still gonna be a play every week.
I said fool, not sit.
I wouldn't sit him, but he already for me is on my list of people who potentially he has a really good 2 weeks in a row. I'm trading him high.
Really?
Really?
He just, his floor is, he can have 7 points one week. He can have 25 points one week. He's not a guy who consistent gets you 15 to 20. His range is so far apart.
I value Burrow highest than I imagine out of us. I think Burrow is a superstar
Dynasty,
quarterback. I do. I'm very happy with my pick in Dynasty, especially with him being tied to Jamar Chase for years, and I'm very happy with having him. So maybe I'm holding out a little bit of extra hope, but all right. I don't want to talk any more ill will about my guy. So we're going to move on to my next disappointment, or the other fool, my fool of the week. I don't actually have one person. I don't have 2 people. I have an entire Baltimore offensive line. Who watched that opening game against Kansas City? Now, the only reservation I have is maybe Baltimore's offensive line isn't horrific. Maybe they're just middling to low against a great Kansas City defensive rush.
Great, yeah.
But they were atrocious. It was like a sieve. Kansas City was running through them like they were basically Swiss cheese. It was unbearable watching Lamar Jackson go out and literally, as he couldn't even pass because he had to literally just immediately run away from people, and he had so many rushes that were just pressured. And if they look like this, then week 2, I'm worried about everyone on Baltimore except for Lamar Jackson.
So they did have a lot of injuries and even a suspension on their offensive line. I think they were down 3 starting offensive line members, which don't get me wrong, they were the fool of the. I am so with you. They are a fool because they couldn't help an elite quarterback with anything. But they were down 3 starters, and so I mean,
this is 3 starters for this year, and this is not in addition to the 3 starters that they lost in the offseason from last year.
This is this year.
Okay.
This is also interesting.
Well, they still sucked.
If they continue to play the way they played in week 1, I think it worries Derrick Henry managers. It excites Lamar Jackson managers. So Lamar was still
it doesn't excite me. It doesn't excite me. If I had Lamar Jackson
week against a very good defense, the Super Bowl champions, and they played like trash
until he gets hurt.
Yes,
until he gets hurt.
Exactly.
He can't run that much. Every time he ran the ball, every time he ran the ball, I'm sorry, I just got to say this and then I'm done. Every time he ran the ball after the 4th rush, I was getting so scared.
Every time he
I was getting so scared.
Everyone was because he lost weight and he's a smaller him. Now he's
Yeah.
fragile.
We'll see. I think it helps. I think Lamar's going to continue what he was doing. He played top 5 while the offensive line's figuring it out. Derrick Henry, I was hoping could put up some more points. I think it's him who's going to have a slow start with this offensive line. But moving on to my fool of the week, I have Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase was 31st in half PPR. I really, on a week that you're going up against a team that has a new head coach, you've got your starting quarterback. Honestly, if he wasn't prepared, it's his own damn fault for not being at preseason with 2 years left on his contract. And, no T. Higgins, it was your day to step up, And so Jamar Chase, he really disappointed me, barely playing at a wide receiver 3 level.
I'm with you, Jordan. I wish he did a little much better myself. I think it would have helped me with Burrow. I think it would have helped him for him. I do blame a lot of it on the fact that he was missing from training camp, all because of these contractual issues, which I'm also 100% with you. It's ridiculous. You have 2 more years on your contract. Prove it. I mean, you've proven that you're one of the best wide receivers in the game. Guess what you haven't proven? You have not proven that you're better than Justin Jefferson, because Justin Jefferson has broken records. You have not. So guess what? Don't be asking for more money.
Yeah, and he disappointed me, especially with T. Higgins being out. A lot of times, for example, if I see Brandon Cooks go down, that excites me if I'm a CD Lamb manager, because I'm like, wow, they got to force the ball to him even more than they already were sending him the ball. This situation, this was your week, dude. This is what they pay you for in these situations, to step up and help win. I'm worried about the Bengals offense.
We want to clarify as a podcast that we were obviously just meaning that Brandon Cooks goes down because, he got sick that day. We don't want any injuries on anybody. Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it. No more.
Right.
We're done.
Week 2 matchups.
Cut the episode. Re-record. We're done. Who cares about the matchups now?
Jesus.
Oh my God, that was awful. We just lost the 2 followers we had. All right.
I disagree. I think we just made a couple. We made a couple laugh. All right, moving on.
Moving on to week 2 matchups. So today we've got all matchups that are going on, starting on Thursday, going into Monday. That's 16 matchups. We're going to go over the Bills, Dolphins, Raiders, Ravens, Chargers, Panthers, Saints, Cowboys, Bucks, Lions, Colts, Packers, Browns, Jaguars, Niners, Vikings, Seahawks, Patriots, Jets, Titans, Giants, Commanders, Rams, Cardinals,
You're just
Steelers,
listing
Broncos,
teams?
Bengals, Chiefs, Bears, Texans, Falcons, Eagles.
Tyler.
Oh my gosh, that was great.
Neither follower we have was able to follow what you just went through.
Yeah, I think we could have done away with that. But okay, we're going to start with the first one, and we're going to go back to which one, Ty?
It is the Buffalo Bills versus the Miami Dolphins.
That's that one, right? I remember that one.
To Tyler.
It's appropriate. But okay,
right off the deserve
bat,
that.
So right off the bat. So who are we playing, right? We're playing here Josh Allen, James Cook, and Dalton Kincaid for sure, right? That's on the Buffalo side.
No, actually, I think we got to talk about Kincaid here. Kincaid worried me a little bit. I think a lot of us talked about him coming in a potential, like the Baltimore Ravens. They use their tight ends a lot in the passing game. I thought Kincaid was going to be more involved. He had 3 targets? To me, I'm going into this next week.
I think he had 2.
Very clear, Kincaid is number 3 on that receiving list, behind Shakir and behind Keon Coleman already. And we thought he was going to come in as a reliable target. I'm a little worried if I'm a Kincaid owner. I'm looking at the tight ends on the waiver wire.
But there's not a lot of tight ends, though. That's the only thing. You drafted Kincaid to be your starting tight end. I'm with you, Mike. You don't put him on your bench. You're not going to go get a lesser guy to fill that position.
Wait, let me ask you this. Isaiah Likely. You got him on the waiver wire this week, and you're a Kincaid owner. You took him because he was the highest flex option or highest prospect. You liked him. You starting Likely in week 2 after that awesome performance, or are you starting Kincaid?
In that case, I would go with Likely.
Buffalo versus Miami or Vegas versus Baltimore, which we'll get to. I would probably,
It's a
I would
tough question.
probably still go Kincaid, to be honest, because I don't believe.
But you're not confident.
I believe this is going to end up being a one-off. I don't think this is going to be the game script for the future. I really don't. I think Kincaid is still going to be at least one of the top 2 looks in this offense, and I believe this week, because he was double teamed. Like they don't have the same weapons that they do. They don't have the people who are going to stretch the field like Stephon Diggs did. I do believe that he's going to be able to.
I believe most of the game was a comeback as well. Am I wrong? Most of the game they played from behind.
I believe they were behind. They were behind early.
It's not going to happen every game. So, like, of course, Allen's going to be passing to Shakir and Keon Coleman in those situations. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Moving on to Miami. For our plays, we've got Devon Achane. If he's healthy, I think you're still going to play him, even coming off injury. Raheem Mostert, same. He's going to be that flex RB2. Jalen Waddle, if he's back from his injury, you're going to play him. And same with Tyreek Hill. I think the Miami offense just really cooks no matter what pick you pick. But also guys to be on the lookout for would be if Achane and Mostert are both out. You do want to look at that Miami those Miami running backs who take over. So,
are you starting Jalen Wright this week if both of those running backs are out?
Yeah, I think he's definitely in the flex category along with Tua and Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm starting him. It's really going to depend. It's really going to depend on who else you have, right? I mean, like, I would not start Jalen Wright or Jeff Wilson if I had guys on the bench. Like, I would probably still feel more comfortable starting like Zeke, to be honest.
Oof.
I really would, because we know nothing about these guys.
Fair.
We know nothing about these guys. It's too young. And guess what? Both these guys are hurt. They both got hurt behind the offensive line. Who knows what they're going to do after this? So I would go with tried and true, personally.
Fair.
Moving on to the Raiders-Ravens game. This one I'm excited for. I really just love Minshew Mania, and I'm ready for him to cook and upset the Ravens this week. And you know what? I'm going to call it. The Raiders are going to win. That's my prediction.
Yeah? That's
I'm
your bold
now.
Okay,
that's my
your
bold prediction.
Raiders are going to beat Baltimore.
Yeah,
all right.
And on the play side, you're always going to play Devontae Adams. In this case, I definitely think you're going to want to look to Brock Bowers, who did perform quite well as that rookie tight end for the Raiders. You can also flex and look at Jacoby Myers. Definitely someone that might be able to get you some fantasy points if you're short on that wide receiver position. Gardner, if you're in a super flex league, you could look toward him, especially because they're going to win. So it's all right picking him up. From the Baltimore side, you're playing Lamar. You have to play Derrick Henry. And we talked about it a little bit already, but I think in this case you could probably play both tight ends in Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely.
I'm not giving up on Andrews yet.
Yeah, I'm not giving up on Andrews either. And I think, especially going up against the Raiders, this is going to be a high point game, and I think you could play both.
So I have worries about both of these guys, right? Like Isaiah Likely, even last year he proved he was great. He did. But he really proved it again on game 1. But do you think he's going to actually be taking over that wide receiver, that receiver 1 position? I don't. I still think they have Mark Andrews. I still think he's a great player for them. I think he's been their old tried and true. I just think that Mark Andrews' ceiling is now no longer tight end 2. He's probably going to end up closer to tight end 4 or 5. And I still think Isaiah Likely is going to end up being in that top 10. I think they both will finish top 10, and they're both going to have boom and bust weeks.
I think you're right in that it's going to go back and forth in weeks. I don't know if they both end up top 10. I doubt either one ends up top 5.
Okay.
We'll see.
So for those flex spots, you also want to look at Isaiah Flowers. And this is definitely a week, if you are not like me and don't believe the Raiders will win, you probably want to play the Baltimore defense.
Zay Flowers, by the way. We miss up names frequently.
Zay Flowers.
Yeah, we're not doing too hot
Flowers.
There. Oh. Well, Zay Flowers. The Chargers versus Panthers game. This is going to be, in my opinion, a high point game. On the Chargers side, you're definitely starting their running backs, J.K. Dobbins, you're going to start their kicker because they're going to be going for the field goals if the Carolina Panthers actually are able to stop them. But if not, they're just getting all those extra points for you. Also, I think, in my opinion, you also want to play Ladd McConkey. He looks really good in this matchup. And he proved last week, and depending on your league format, for me, he got 14.8 points or something like that. And this week, I think he's got the opportunity to get it even more going up against the Panthers, as we saw Derek Carr did.
Yeah, he could.
Derek Carr had a great
against the Panthers.
Derek Carr had a good week against them. Especially with that first opening drive with Shakir just giving I was a 60-yard touch. I'm sorry, Shaheed. See, Shakir ended up getting me confused now. All right, so Shaheed ended up having that 60-yard, 70-yard touchdown, which is insane. But I do worry about Ladd McConkey and any receiver, honestly, for the rest of the season playing against Carolina, because I just think they're going to be blown out every single game. They might go 0-16. I genuinely believe that. And it's not even going to be remotely close. So I think that they're going to be running the ball against them a lot. I think your running backs are going to be using them the whole time, eating up clock, and that's it. I worry about the receivers.
We'll see.
From the Carolina side, I honestly still wouldn't start anyone on the Carolina side.
Nobody. None.
Not even a single one.
Not even Bryce Young in the super flex.
No, I wouldn't flex anyone. I'd bench them all. So moving on to the Saints versus Cowboys, there obviously are those guys you're starting: Alvin Kamara, CeeDee Lamb, Dak. You could flex Cook if you don't have many options, but we just saw what the New Orleans Saints did to the Panthers. So, depending on what your situation is, you're also going to want to consider flexing Olave, Taysom Hill, and Shaheed. We talked about them a little bit. Olave, wish you could say he's a start, but at this rate, he seems just like a flex. You can also flex Zeke if you're have a shorter running back pool. And really on that, both sides of the game, you're really not going to keep anyone on the bench. Jake Ferguson, be on the lookout for his injury.
All right, Ladd McConkey or Chris Olave, who would you start this coming week?
I would start Ladd McConkey because I just think that even Olave, even though he's a better player, I just think I honestly don't think Derek Carr likes throwing to him. I really don't. Yeah. I don't think Derek Carr likes throwing to Olave.
Which is it's a weird situation there. He might be in a look to just get other receivers on the waiver wire because he might need to prove it till he gets off the bench to get off my bench again.
Yep, agreed.
Okay,
Jordan, you want to take us
now
to
we
next
have
game?
the next game, which is
my game of the week. I'm excited for this one.
Tampa Bay versus Detroit. So, first off, we got Tampa Bay side of things. You're starting Mike Evans. You are starting Rachaad White after a slight disappointment in week 1, but honestly, brighter things to come. You drafted him to do better. Don't give me that face, Tyler. Chase McLaughlin.
I thought he did pretty good.
Kicker was number 6 this week. And then I would start Mayfield. I think he had an awesome week 1, and high things are to come. Not only that, he's going to be playing the Panthers twice this year because he's a buck. So then you also have Godwin. Actually, the whole team, they're playing the Panthers twice a year. Godwin also played very, very well. On the Detroit side, both Monty and Gibbs, as expected, you're starting them. Amon-Ra, you're still starting him, even though he bummed you out week 1. Brighter things are coming. He was top 5 last season for a reason. Laporta, same thing. Only put up 4.5 or 0.6, but still, that's like his floor. That might be the lowest week he has all season, along with Amon-Ra. Then you're definitely starting Jameson Williams after this awesome first week. I think Jared Goff is still in the mix, and Detroit Lions defense played pretty well, so they're definitely a streamer.
I don't think there's anything to be said. I mean, Detroit, I would love him, and you're going to play the entire team. I mean, I think there's some people you got to put in a flex spot, but outside of that, you're going to play him. So, we can just move on.
Lots of great guys in that matchup to play on both sides. Now, the next game you got Indianapolis and Green Bay. This is an interesting game that we're going to talk a little bit about. Indianapolis, you're still starting Richardson. He had a really great week one. Jonathan Taylor, same thing. Pittman, a little suspect because kind of like Olave and Derek Carr, you kind of wonder if Pittman's not, Anthony Richardson's favorite target. Alec Pierce is now in the flex conversation after not really being relevant the first couple of years. And Adonai Mitchell, same thing, flex conversation. Green Bay side of things, we'll talk a little bit on Jacobs. And of course, you're starting him if you got him. Ben, in the flex, what are you guys doing with Malik Willis? Probably starting with Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, and Tucker Kraft.
See, I can't, to be honest. I really, really hate the fact that I can't because I love playing these guys. The only guys I could play out of Green Bay right now are Josh Jacobs because he's going to be a workhorse back, and Jalen Reed. That's all I really feel comfortable with.
So yeah, I wouldn't take any of their wide receiving core, but what I would do, Josh Jacobs right now is questionable. So if I were you, and I did this in a few of our leagues where I had Josh Jacobs, pick up Emmanuel Wilson because he is the second back in case Jacobs doesn't make it. Because then Emmanuel Wilson, he showed in week one, he can actually run the ball. He will be the guy that game because they're not going to throw it with Malik Willis. So 100%.
I think he had a couple good catches there as well, if I'm not wrong.
Right,
Emmanuel
so
Wilson.
Put him on your bench as that handcuff just in case Jacobs goes down.
Especially if you got Jacobs. Honestly, I'm with you, Mike. I think I might still be starting Jaden Reed. He plays in a Deebo Samuel style where he's going to be involved a little bit in the running game, which I think puts a pretty high floor on his fantasy value, especially like he was number 1 for week 1. I don't know how you bench him this coming week. Christian Watson, you're right, I get it. Dobbs, I get it. Malik Willis, I'm not considering really starting unless he's your only choice. Jacobs worries me a little bit. I think he's only going to put up RB2 numbers while Jordan Love's out. For example, I think that, let's like with the Texans, I think the running back just gets some more room with a better quarterback play. Malik Willis hasn't proven that he can pass it. They're going to stack the box. And I don't think Josh Jacobs is going to get a lot of yards after carries.
But Josh Jacobs has been a pass catcher in the past. He's caught the ball when he was with the Raiders. So I could see it also turning into a Saquon conversation.
We'll see. I'm not high on Jacobs this week. But next game, we've got Cleveland and Jacksonville. Cleveland, you're starting Jerome Ford after an awesome week 1. That team's running through a running game because Deshaun's not doing great this week. You're probably starting Amari Cooper, at least in the flex. And I'm still high at hopes on Cleveland's defense, who, let's be honest, Dak and CD is a great duo. On the Jacksonville side, you got Brian Thomas Jr., who I question if he's going to step into number 1 over Christian Kirk by the end of the season.
Then already done.
Yeah, already done.
Done.
I have both of them in one league. I might literally be starting Brian Thomas Jr. already. Then Travis Etienne, he's typically known for his explosiveness. I think better things are going to come. You're going to start him. And if you got him, T-Law, you're starting him. Christian Kirk, I'm not sure I'm starting him. Him and like Drake London, those guys, they might need to prove it to get off my bench.
See, I'm with you. I don't think Christian Kirk is going to be there anymore. I'm fully on the Brian Thomas train. I thought he looked absolutely great. He only had 4 receptions, if I recall correctly. But like he had 40 yards on them. He just looked the part. And he looked like he was taking away Christian Kirk's job. I mean, it just literally looked like that. And I think T-Law is going to end up growing fond of the kid.
Yeah.
Aww.
And Mike, what do you think? Or Tyler?
Oh, well, I'm Mike, so I just worry about Deshaun Watson. He's really the biggest question mark right now. He's been with this team now this is going to be his second season with this offense. It's just was Amari Cooper worth that draft capital? I don't know. But take us to the next game.
On the next game, you've got San Francisco versus Minnesota. This one, I mean, Sam Darnold, don't get too high on him. Don't expect him to replace like Jordan Love or somebody that got hurt. I think he's going to be a solid backup, but it was the Giants he played against. Now, in terms of who else on the Minnesota side I'm trusting, Sam Darnold played good enough that Aaron Jones and Justin Jefferson are still going to be putting up fantasy relevant numbers. I'm still definitely starting Jefferson, still starting Jones. Now, on the San Francisco side, rumor is Christian McCaffrey's probably not starting. In that case, I mean, I'm definitely starting Jordan Mason if I picked him up, but I'm still starting all the receivers for, San Francisco. I'm starting Purdy. I expect a big game from San Francisco, just their offense in general.
Yeah, I thought Jordan Mason looked solid. Honestly,
Yeah.
he looked so good against what is supposed to be a very good Jets team. It made me actually worried about Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Did
Well,
that happen to anybody else?
I wasn't worried about Christian McCaffrey. I was more hyped for Jordan Mason because it felt like, okay, here's a guy who, yes, you're in a very good scheme for a running back, and it's been proven year after year under Kyle Shanahan, but it's not just his scheme. Like, it's you bringing a little extra to the position. So I was just more excited for him and worried about Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey's kind of irreplaceable.
And you're right, but I guess to my point of that, I'm saying like in a dynasty format, like he's getting paid a lot of money. He did get that contract.
Mm-hmm.
There's a possibility that they just maybe move on from him next year because there will always be a market for Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And they have to pay Purdy next year. So what does that mean?
Yeah, if they don't win with CMC, they may just continue with Jordan Mason next year and take it from there. But
I mean, they might, but we can move on to the next game. So right off the bat, I'll start off Seattle with New England. Really not much to go here. I would have on the Seattle side, Ken Walker would be a starter if he's there, but again, he's got a nagging injury with the oblique, so really got to monitor that. If he's even limited in his last practice, I would basically move him to the flex, if not the bench. Other than that, DK Metcalf is my next start. And the other people you'd be considering would be Zach Charbonnet and Tyler Lockett. People who I really don't like. I don't like Geno Smith. I don't like Jackson Smith and Jingba. He, again, was a no-show when he was supposed to be a big part of this season. And Noah Fant.
I'm high on Ramondre. This might be the year for the New England running back.
Well, that is true, but I was about to get to the New England side. But, yes, thank you, Jordan.
Sorry.
I'm high on Ramondre this season. Ramondre, I thought, looked absolutely great. Joey Sly, I would say, as a kicker, and the New England defense. The New England defense, guys, it looked good. I don't know what you guys thought, but I thought the New England defense did look really good in week one. So I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think Ramondre Stevenson is going to help drive the ball down the field, and they're not going to get a touchdown. And Joey Sly is going to kick a whole bunch of field goals. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Guys who I would consider flexing, but probably wouldn't, would be Jalen Polk and Pop Douglas. But again, really not favoring them. Really not much involved in that game. I don't think I missed anybody, so we're going to move on to the Jets and the Tennessee Titans. New York Jets, they were exciting. Monday Night Football team. Unfortunately, they did not come out with the W, but I would still play against a weak Tennessee team. I'm playing Aaron Rodgers. I'm playing Garrett Wilson. I'm playing Breece Hall, and I'm playing the New York Jets defense. I think all four of them are going to have. I think all four of them are going to have great games. But you're right. Lazard had a fantastic 2-touchdown performance in that first week. But I got to say, I have him as more of a flex.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to do it again.
How much of a red zone target do you expect him to be the rest of the season? No, I don't expect this to be a sign of things to come.
He's worked with Rodgers before, often at the back when he was there on the Packers, so maybe he could be a second favorite target.
He could put up another 8 to 10.
Absolutely, could be a second or third. I don't think he's going to be a bigger. I don't think he's going to be a bigger favorite target than Garrett Wilson, and I don't think he's going to be a bigger favorite than Breece Hall. And I do think that when Mike Williams becomes healthy, he will be over him as well. That's because I don't think he's going to be out there. I think Mike Williams will be the second wide receiver.
I forgot about Mike Williams.
Yeah, so I do think that this was a good week for Lazard, but I don't anticipate it happening again. At least maybe one touchdown, but who knows? On the Tennessee side, though, I'm very nervous, boys. That's a very, very, very strong New York Jets defense, despite the fact that how they looked against a very, very skilled San Francisco team. I would play Pollard because he clearly took over. I thought the lead back, but
Yeah.
Everyone else is a really questionable play.
Yep.
What do you think? Am I missing anybody?
I think one specific person on Tennessee, Calvin Ridley. Wait for him to have a good week and sell him high. His catch rate was 56% last year. He's on a worse offense this year. I don't see better things coming for him. If he has a high week, sell him high. I don't trust anybody in this
More
offense.
importantly, agreed. I agree with you 100%. And honestly, on top of that, I don't like how I don't like how Will Levis looked. I just didn't. I didn't think he looked good at all. So I think they're going to have quarterback problems, and I think it's going to be bad. But we can move on to the next game here. We have Jordan's favorite team, the New York Giants, versus the Washington Commanders.
Hey.
This is a game where I would say no one is excited for.
I am sort of.
I'm excited for the Commanders.
I'm excited for the Commanders, and I'm excited to see my boy Neighbors. I really am. So Malik Neighbors actually has a chance here to potentially look good because maybe Daniel Jones can get him the ball here. Washington's defense is not good, so
They're
therefore
suspect.
Daniel Jones might have they might have some more time to be throwing from in the pocket, and that might mean more time for Malik Neighbors to shine. Outside of that, the only other play on the Giants that I have is Graham Gano. Because, again, I think they're going to be kicking from a long ways away, and I think those added points from extra distances will be more value for your
say
fans.
actually the one other person I'll say, Wan'Dale Robinson might have some relevancy in full PPR leagues. He had 12 targets. If he can connect slightly more with Daniel Jones and catch more of those, he's PPR valuable. But yeah, probably not.
In a full PPR, I would tend to agree. He might move up from my flex. I have Wan'Dale Robinson and pretty much every other receiver in the bench category, but I could see them being moved up to flex category if it's a full PPR. I just think that with a lesser defense, Malik Neighbors is going to see even more and more targets.
Man, this one breaks my heart because Jaden Daniels was the guy Brian Dable wanted to trade up for, but there was zero chance because Washington wasn't giving up the number 2 pick.
Yeah, I don't see why, because I have him as my start because I think Jaden Daniels looked solid.
Awesome.
At least in a fantasy perspective. He did not throw all that well, but he had 2 rushing touchdowns?
2, I
And
believe.
and he ran the ball a ton. I do think he's in the same category as Lamar to where he's going to run and put up fantasy numbers until he gets hurt. But while you have him, play him. Other guys I liked were Terry McLaurin and Brian Robinson. I thought Brian Robinson looked really good, and I think Terry McLaurin will have better days ahead against a Giants defense. Other people you can consider, Luke McCaffrey, Zach Ertz, Austin Eckler, their flexes. I would favor Luke McCaffrey over the other two personally.
This is the game for Daniel Jones. Jordan, I'm pledging to you here. This is the game for Daniel Jones to actually do something against this Commanders defense. He's not going to, but this is his one chance.
I'm not saying he's not going to. That's the thing. He's going. Honestly,
I'm going to say he's not
what's
going to
happen.
What do you think is going to happen?
I believe he will. I think he will, and it's because Daniel Jones has done just enough every time to make sure he still has a job. That is all he's done. And you know what? He's going to do it one more time against a bad team. He's going to make everybody look good and be like, oh, well, maybe there's a chance. And then he's just going to fall flat on their face by week 6. If he does a bad job this week, why do you start him after week 2?
I think he doesn't. And I'll tell you, because I don't know if it's him not doing it. I don't know if it's Brian Dable not calling the plays. But he doesn't throw the ball deep, ever. He doesn't even try. It's not like he throws interceptions deep. He doesn't even freaking throw the ball deep. And so we'll see. Malik Neighbors will have better fantasy points next season.
Yes, that is true. All right, my last game before I'll hand it back off to Tyler. Finally, a game I'm excited to actually give you guys. Jeez. All right, the Rams against Arizona. This one I think is going to have some heavy hitters. I really like Matthew Stafford in this. I also really like Cooper Kupp, the ageless wonder. I think the guy got 21 targets last game, and he's just going to keep ponying them up. Kyron Williams, hands down, you got to put him in. And as far as a tight end goes, I actually really like streaming Parkinson this week. So I think it's going to actually be a decent showing because I think it's going to be a shootout.
I think he might have taken the
players
job from Higbee in terms of receiving tight end.
I don't disagree. Higbee's not bad, but he's not like anything great. I really liked him. So we'll see how he goes.
He could be a good dynasty pickup, Parkinson.
Yeah. He could be, absolutely. So I don't really have anyone I don't want to play other than, honestly, I don't feel good about Blake Corum. I think Kyron Williams is absolutely the dude, and I don't think they're going to play Blake Corum until they have to. So I'm going to then go to the Arizona side. I have Kyler, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Trey McBride. They are absolute locks. You drafted them to be locks, and they are locks. And I think that they're going to do really well. I genuinely believe that they'll have a good season and a good game.
One quick thing about Rams, just like Tyler brought up with the Ravens offensive line having like 3 people out. I believe the Rams had 3 people out as well this game. So, I mean, Sean McVay talked a lot about how like this wasn't like come up before. This was like middle of the game. We have to come up with a new game plan. So I don't think this is a good week to see things to come. I think Kyron, like you guys said, will have better weeks. He was still good this week. And I do think if you have Blake Corum, don't give up on him at all. In future weeks, he'll blow up.
Okay, so here's the thing. If you have Blake Corum and you're holding him on the bench, are you going to continue to hold him on your bench just out of the hope that Kyron is out?
I might hold on. If I have him as a handcuff,
I would.
I'm holding on to him. If I have him on my bench, I'm probably not giving up on him being irrelevant to fantasy this year till at least week 6, maybe week 7.
I just think it's so valuable, some of those bench spots this early when people are still around and they are still going down. Like, those bench spots are valuable right now, and it's just a lot if you start going 3-4 weeks. Just having somebody who you're not planning on playing.
Maybe week 3 or 4, you have a better sample. You have 25% of the season. If by then Blake Corum hasn't had like more than 5 points, move on.
Yeah. Other than that, I think that you're playing basically, again, like I said, from Arizona, Kyler, Marvin Harris Jr., Trey McBride, pretty much no one else.
Yeah, moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Denver Broncos. I think for the first time in a while, you have a competency in the Pittsburgh offense. So you're going to play George Pickens. I think you're definitely going to start Najee Harris after what he did last week. You're going to start their kicker. Obviously, he had a great week last week as well. And the defense, this Bronco offense is weak. So bringing up that Pittsburgh defense is going to help you a lot. You also, this is a tough one. Jaylen Warren, he definitely disappointed you last week, but he was just coming off injury. So I still think he stays within that flex category. And look at Pat Freiermuth and Justin Fields if you are desperate. If you had a guy like Jordan Love who went down and your only option is Justin Fields, I have confidence in that, and I would start him and make that swap. From the Denver side, you can always feel pretty good about starting Courtland Sutton, but a little bit worried either way. From the running back side, I don't really feel confidence in either Javonte Williams or Jalen McLaughlin. We did talk about it. I do think this raises the running back value, and I think those guys are because of the absence of their third back, but I don't know if they're start category. If you're desperate for running backs, it is a pretty shallow position. You could probably start either one and get about the same points.
I feel like you pick up one of them and you kind of hope that they just take off and you hope that they become the dude, which right now does seem like McLaughlin is the more explosive of the two, but Javonte Williams is just more built for it.
I mean, if you moving on, Jalen McLaughlin might be a buy low guy right now.
Yes, and a guy to have, definitely. Moving on to Cincinnati versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Even though he was my fool of the week, I still think you start Burrow. You draft him where you got him. You paid the money for him. You're going to start him. Same with Jamar Chase, even after last week's performance. It is a tough decision. If you're desperate, you can start Zach Moss either as your running back or your flex. Definitely more of a position that you would want to look towards. If you have much more depth at running back, I would consider replacing Moss, knowing he's going up against this Kansas City defense. We did see Lamar pick them apart, but it's something to work to monitor.
Yeah.
From the Kansas City side, you're pretty much starting everyone you would. Mahomes, Kelsey, Rice. Pacheco. I think after last week's performance, you even start Xavier Worthy, which is going to be surprising because that's, 2 wide receivers and a tight end that you're starting, and those are Pat Mahomes' guys. So you're going to start pretty much the entire Kansas City team. And after last week's performance, definitely look at the Kansas City defense.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Man, there is someone speaking of Kansas City players, one bit of news, not really fantasy relevant, but Kadarius Toney is now a Cleveland Brown. Man, so I don't expect anything from him, though. No longer
I wouldn't
with
expect
KC.
anything from him.
But
Yeah,
that's interesting.
nah,
he was kind of relevant with KC. Maybe he'll do something in Cleveland.
He was not ever relevant.
I don't think he's going to be ever
was
relevant.
He ever flex territory?
No.
No?
Never.
Out of hype from a first-round pick. That's pretty much it.
Fair.
All right,
moving on to the
games.
next game, we've got Chicago versus Houston. And then for Chicago, DJ Moore didn't really do as great as we wanted him to in week 1 after a career year in 23.
They were awful. We could be honest.
Yeah, they were awful.
That's not his fault. He was still targeted as his number 1 guy. Better things to come. I'm still 100%. Starting him. Other than that, DeAndre Swift is a little suspect. Chicago's defense, we'll see about that. I'm probably not starting Caleb Williams till he shows up and proves he can have more than 10 points in a fantasy week.
Yeah, I know we're running long here, but I do have to ask this question. But, at what point do we really start worrying about everyone on this offense if Caleb Williams doesn't show? Week 3, 4? When do we worry about everything?
Fantasy or Chicago or football?
Fantasy-wise, this season.
I think after this coming week, you're going to notice because
you're on red alert after this week.
Yeah, because the Texans, they have holes. You saw the Colts do it, and Chicago's supposed to be this dominant team, theoretically better than the Colts. This is the week where I'm going to look and say, all right, how did Caleb do? And if I don't see much, that's when I start to dip into that.
I'm probably giving it to week 3 or 4.
I feel like I'm at week 3, but I do hear you, Tyler. It's questionable because when you start going into week 3, that's 25% of your regular season in your fantasy league. So you have to pretty much get a 7-6, 8-5 record, right, to get into playoffs. And
that's 20.
If you're down 3, if you're down 3, it's 25%.
3 out of 17 games.
No, but those are playoff games
fantasy,
too.
Jordan.
Oh, you're
your regular season. Yeah. So you need to have that. You need to have a good start, and if you're down 0-3, it's a tough hole to get out of.
Yeah, that's very fair. Definitely by week 3, you want him to show up. Other than that, you're worried. On the Houston side, you're pretty excited if you got Stroud. And you're actually pretty excited if you got either Nico Collins or Diggs. I think Nico showed he's the number 1 guy. He had the most targets and 117 yards. So he still has that rapport with Stroud. That's exciting. But Diggs, he only got 34 yards, but he got 2 touchdowns. So he's clearly going to be a good red zone target. The other one, Joe Mixon. I already talked about him. You're starting him. And you're probably starting Houston's defense if you got him, because Caleb Williams has not shown up in the NFL yet.
I just think that Houston's offense is going to throw out touchdowns like Oprah throws out hundreds. I really do. It's just going to be all over the place.
This is a good time to have the Houston wide receiving core.
Jordan got it.
I got it, but she usually throws out things like you get a car. I've never seen her throw out hundreds like it's a strip club.
And they're all worth hundreds. It doesn't matter. We're moving on to the last game.
Have you seen Oprah in a strip
Thank
club?
God.
Atlanta versus Philadelphia. I'm a little concerned at the Atlanta offense. I have to say they did not look as good as I wanted them to. I thought Kirk Cousins was a little bit lackluster, but I do have locks. You drafted Bijan Robinson, and he's one of the best running backs in the game. I think there's a chance that he can be number 1 this year, so you're starting him no matter what. Kyle Pitts, again, Titans were down, but he did score a touchdown last week, and I do still have faith in this offense to put it together. Kirk Cousins was immobile, coming off an injury, and he's learning a new system. I'm hoping for better things ahead. Other than that, Drake London, same logic, except far more questionable. I'm starting him, honestly, because I have to. You drafted him probably in your 3rd round, 4th round, and you put that capital in, you pretty much have to rely on it.
Dude, I don't know.
Outside of him,
I don't know. If you, for example, I might bench Drake London this week. It was that bad.
I don't view Philadelphia's defense as that good. Their secondary had holes last year.
Dude,
this is one of their
let's
test weeks.
Let's say you have Drake London, Jalen Waddle, Ladd McConkey, and Brian Thomas Jr. You're not considering Brian Thomas Jr. over Drake London this week?
I think to Mike's point, you have to play him where you drafted him.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
You got to win as much as you can, and I don't trust Drake London.
But I don't trust Brian Thomas Jr. against the Cleveland defense, which is known to be good. Like, as far as playing the matchup, I don't know. But I do think that you have to play him, in my opinion. But I guess there's question marks, but I still think you're going to flex him at the very least. But on the other side of the ball, I would definitely start Jalen Hurts. I'm definitely starting Saquon Barkley, especially after he was RB1 last week. I mean, he was incredible. 3 touchdowns. Oh my God!
Such a bittersweet game to watch for me.
It was. Jordan, I don't know if you have him or not, but I hope you do, at least in one league, so he doesn't fuck you all the time.
I do in one, just because I was like, I like him. I needed to do it, so it worked out. I have him and Jaden Reed on the same team. Wow.
Perfect. That was a great week. All right, so you're starting Saquon Barkley, you're starting A.J. Brown, you're starting Devonta Smith. Places people you can flex. You could definitely flex their kicker Elliott, and you could definitely flex their tight end Goddard. I would definitely lean away from Goddard if you can, but everyone else is just a sit.
Yeah. Moving on to our final section. We got Duel
of the Fools. We have it back. And our first
quick
results.
I'm just going to go over winners. You heard last week's players last week. Tyler got 5 correct. Mike got 2 correct. I got 3 correct. So Tyler is week 1 winner. Congrats. Blah, blah, blah.
Not surprising there.
It is surprising. You got last season. So moving on to our next. Did you? No, I got first.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at the results. We can pull them back.
Tyler got first
screen.
when you play golf scores.
Tyler
got first when you play golf scores.
So,
all right, for week 2 though, we gotta bang them
QB.
out.
So QB, we have Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford. Mike, who you got?
So I'm basically looking at. I think it's gonna be Stafford against Arizona. I think it's gonna be a shootout.
Tyler.
Yep, and I have Aaron Rodgers. Actually, I think the matchup is just a little bit better for the Jets.
I got Stafford, even though Pikachu is out. Next matchup, we got RBs, Najee Harris or DeAndre Swift. I went with Najee Harris. Tyler, who'd you go with?
I also went with Najee Harris. Didn't like what I saw with Swift.
See, I understand, but I definitely like Swift here against Houston. I don't think their defense is going to be all that great. Again, I think it's going to be a shootout, and I think it's going to be explosive enough.
We'll see. Next RB matchup is Alvin Kamara going against Dallas or Aaron Jones going against San Francisco. I personally have Alvin Kamara going against Dallas.
And I chose Aaron Jones, surprisingly enough, but I saw what Breece Hall did to the Niners last week from the catching game, and this is, I think, going to be Aaron Jones' week.
And I would like to not choose either because they are both going up against great defenses, but if I have to choose one, give me the PPR, give me Alvin Kamara.
All right, next matchup, we have the final RB matchup, which is Ramondre Stevenson going up against Seattle, or James Cook on Thursday night going against Miami. Personally, I went with Ramondre Stevenson. I thought he looked awesome. Tyler, who do you have?
I also went with Ramondre Stevenson.
Good choice.
And I had a very hard time not going with Ramondre Stevenson. I think James Cook against Miami could cook.
Wrong. Anyway, wide receivers. Now we have... First matchup of them is Drake London versus Philadelphia or George Pickens versus Denver. Personally,
I went with Pickens. I think the matchup's better, and I think Pickens is going to do what he did last week.
Everything Tyler said, I agree with. Mike?
Unfortunately, I agree with it too, but because I need to make up points, I'm going Drake London, baby.
Going Drake London, okay. Wide receiver matchup 2, we got Marvin Harrison Jr., a dud in week 1, versus LA. or Brian Thomas Jr. versus Cleveland. Mike, who you got?
So for this one, I have Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm a believer. I still think that they're going to try and find him the ball this time around, and they're not going to miss him completely wide open in the end zone.
Yep, I also have Marvin Harrison Jr.
Words.
Lions were able to throw the ball, and I think this, so will Kyler.
I went the opposite way. I went with my man, Brian Thomas Jr. He hopped into an offense that is already working. He is not the number one target, which means he's not being double teamed. Kyler's back, yes, but he's coming off injury, coming to a new coach with a rookie receiver. I think Marvin Harrison still has growing pains to go through. Wide receiver matchup 3 is going to be CD Lamb versus New Orleans, or Jamar Chase versus Kansas City. Tyler?
Well, I'm just going to sum this up. We all have the Cowboys with CD Lamb. This is a sweep. So let's end it off, Jordan, with tight ends.
I have Jamar Chase in one league. I hope he proves us wrong. But tight end matchup. This one was a little difficult. But Noah Fant versus New England, or Colby Parkinson versus Arizona. Personally, I'm big on this Colby Parkinson guy. I think he took over as receiving tight end for Matt Stafford. Tyler Higbee's Tyler who? And, Mike, who do you have?
I kind of am with you. I'm really holding out hope on the Stafford, and I just think again it's going to be a high offensive game. So Matt Stafford, give me Colby Parkinson.
I'm still sticking with my Noah Fant guns. He is going to be a top 10 tight end this year. I'm going with Noah Fant.
I do appreciate your loyalty to your rankings, despite how wrong they are.
Thank you,
man.
Anyway, that
Fool
is
of the Fools,
and the final end of the episode. If you're still listening, thanks. Take care, everyone. Give us a like, a follow, and subscribe.
Hope you listen at 1.5 speed.
Be shorter next time, maybe.
I hope.
Probably not.